So, we are already into 7 episodes of Schwarzesmarken, and here's the analysis video. It's gonna be rather short, but I sure hope you enjoy it.
そこで軍は保有するほぼ全ての戦術機をゼロ要塞陣地に集結。
The episode opens with a mention of Fort Zelo, and this is quite an interesting historical reference, or once again an irony of history, because the Zelo Heights, they were the final bloody defense battle in World War II to stop the Red Army from advancing to Berlin. And back then the defenders were just as outnumbered, with roughly 100,000 Germans facing 1 million Soviets. Shortly after, we are shown a map, and just like a submarine, Bornholm seems to have resurfaced again, but in exchange for some other mistakes, as several islands have just been co-joined with adjacent landmasses on this map. They don't really get the maps right, do they? As we finally see Fort Zelo, it is ginormous and very impressive, but needless to say, nothing of those proportions really existed anymore IRL, and it seems very unlikely that they would build something like that in times of peace, at least, because with friends to the east now, they would not have a reason to build defensive positions against the Poles, for example. Yet again, it is a question of how long this beta threat has been a thing, and it is reasonable to see, okay, the beta are advancing further and further to the west, so let's build some defensive fortifications to the east. Yeah, it's really a thing of alternate universe that explains this. Anything else, I don't know. It's hard to gauge how long it would take to build something of these proportions in times of real need. With the appearance of the new heavy laser classes, the subs have made a slight mistake. This goes both for Crunchyroll and Deadfish. It is mentioned that a battalion named after Wilhelm König has been wiped out. Now, this can't quite be correct. I think they just misinterpreted what the Japanese were trying to say, because there's no Wilhelm König at that time. However, there's a Wilhelm Knigge, and this is what the Japanese also pretty much say. But it is reasonable to assume that they could have also meant König if you don't do the historical research. But they meant Wilhelm Knigge, and he was a communist resistance member in the Third Reich and later became a semi-high-ranking official in East Germany, serving in multiple functions, and he was quite respected, so it is very reasonable to think that they would name a battalion after him.
The female assistant is called Maya. Now, the subs write it as Maya, which can be true, but the more common name with the same pronunciation would be Maya. In Japanese, that would be pretty much the same, so both are okay.
The new weapon that is supposed to turn the tide in this battle is the P-270 Mosquito. This Soviet missile actually existed IRL as well, but what's interesting to me about it is that the USSR already had a working version of that weapon back in 1978, but it only went into active service in the early 80s, so it kind of surprised me that they indicated this missile to be a sort of a new weapon over here in this episode. But maybe it was simply repurposed for anti-beta warfare in this universe, and therefore it got a little bit delayed until it went into mass production. I don't know, but overall it really fits the timeline, and I like that touch. The mention of East Germany serving as Europe's shield initially seems like an hyperbole, but it actually makes sense geographically, because East Germany is mostly flatlands, and so it is the only non-mountainous area for the beta to pass through from Eastern Europe into Western Europe. And usually you would always avoid trying to pass huge mountain ranges in a war. This goes for pretty much all military leaders. This is why Hannibal back then shocked the Roman Empire, because it was thought impossible to cross the mountains with a huge army. It is not impossible, as he proved, but to this day military leaders like to avoid such things. And simply due to this geographical characteristics of East Germany, it is not only the gate to Central and Western Europe, but also the gatekeeper. Because the only other way for the beta to reach the west would be by crossing a body of water, and that is an even more difficult undertaking than simply just crossing a mountain range or something like that. So yeah, it really makes sense that East Germany is used as a shield here and has that function burdened upon itself. Another small mistake the fansubs made appears near the end of the episode, where a provisional battalion is called Steinhöfer. Actually, there's no reasonably important historical figure in that time with that name, at least none that I could find. And I think that they simply meant Steinhöfel. Steinhöfel is a municipality near Berlin in East Germany. And it really makes sense that a provisional battalion is just named after a place near the front lines rather than after a historical personality. So, yet again, I think this is just a wrong interpretation of what the Japanese were trying to express here. Because you know how it is with English and English. Japanese, they really suck at adapting a foreign language. A thing that kinda rubbed me the wrong way about this episode was found near the end of it. The P-270 Mosquito missiles were actually delivered by what seemed to be B-52 bombers. And as everybody knows, these flying fortresses were obviously US equipment and usually used for delivering nukes. So yeah, I could find no Soviet bomber of that shape or size to really match the silhouette that we saw in the sky. And further on, in real life, the Mosquito missiles, they were actually delivered by multi-role fighters and not by bombers. And I can't even imagine that even in this alternate universe, and even despite the fact that humanity is kind of working together against the beta threat, that the US would simply share their military technology with the East. It just is not a thing that would usually happen, and I don't really see it happen in any way. So yeah, this might be a slight mistake on their side, or maybe it is explained later on, or maybe it has already been explained. As I said, I'm not really a Muv-luv. I'm not really all that into this whole material, so if you know anything about it, please fill me in.
And the thing we see that I really like is that we see a multitude of different women of different age, and Saint Senate said not waifu material, pretty much describing that we see average looking women, and we see them because in other shows, if it's not a really attractive main cast, you don't really see that many women or in the military, but you see it here, which resembles once again pretty much the DDR or East Germany. I really like that. So yes, that was it already with this episode of Schwarzesmarken. Not much, but I think in the final episodes it gets less and less. Perhaps, maybe it just opens up much more questions later on. If people don't know about something, you can leave for them a comment in the comment section asking for them. So what you think might be necessary to explain, and then in the coming episode you say, hey, that dude just did a video about it, maybe look into it and learn something. That would be the best case. So anyway, as usual, thumbs up, subscribe and share it wherever you can. And remember, I can say it, I'm German.